Edward, it looks like you put a lot of heart and soul into this film. What made you get into this material?
It's sort of two main foundational things. One was just simply when I read the book, the character, the greedy actor, just goes, oh wow, that's like a 7-course meal for an actor. You know, just this character who has a condition that it's like jaw-dropping. It's funny, it's painful. He's smart, but he's a mess. He's, you know, there's so much in it that just the challenge of that alone was a powerful, like, you know, magnet on my actor brain. I think once the guy who wrote the novel and I had the impulse to take that detective character and the emotional relationship between him and the audience, but send him into an adventure that was more my own interest in certain things that happened in New York in the 50s, and kind of bigger themes than are in the book about American society in a way. A lot of it had to do with my grandfather, who was he was an urban planner and a very progressive humanitarian who I worked for. And so, like, a lot of the values expressed in the film, especially by Willem Dafoe's character and Gugu's character, that's very much like my grandfather's voice. And I'd always wanted to find a way to dig into these complex issues, but in a weird way, I needed a character, I needed a vehicle that was inspiring and fun and a good story to take us into those more sophisticated subjects in a way.
It took you a long time to get this film done, and I'm always amazed about, you know, the endurance that people have to get movies done. What were some of the obstacles?
You know, it sounds like a long time. Initially, I read the book and I got the rights to it, but then I went into making Fight Club, which was like a year and a half, right? And then I went and directed my first film. And so there was a period where I was so busy I couldn't even begin on it. Then there's this long period where I worked on writing it, because I think, as you saw, it encompasses a lot, and figuring out how to tell a story that is actually an emotional story of a hero's journey, a person rising from being a real underdog to doing something and triumphing, if you want to say. But marrying that and weaving that with an ambitious big story, it took a lot of time to get that right. And that was okay. But when I was finished it took me 5 years to sort of assemble everything. And that probably was the period in which I felt the most mental frustration or just need to persevere and keep pushing. But at the same time, in that period, you know, I made Birdman, and I had some tremendously important creative experiences that were very fulfilling. So I'm incredibly lucky, because it's not like I was sitting, like, doing nothing. And I always felt I'm gonna pull this off eventually, and it'll be right when we do.
It's hard enough to direct someone else portraying someone with Tourette syndrome, but to direct yourself must be even harder. What was the most difficult part about directing yourself?
I can have conversations with myself all day. That part's fine. The more difficult thing, the thing I had the most anxiety about was what it would do to the relationship between me as an actor and other actors, because filmmaking is just like this stuff. It's technical distraction all around you, and actors need each other. They use each other to create a bubble of concentration, and when you're breaking out of that to go do this other thing, you're the one disrupting the purity of that in some ways. And my solution was a cast of people who are theater trained, what I would call serious professionals, people who I knew were capable of working in that way with me without needing me to preserve too much of an artificial magic for them. You know what I mean? And I think when you look at this cast, you can see it's people. I relied on them to make it not a problem.